This is Andy Purewal for Boxing Social in association with Betfred, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sky Sports' Adam Smith over Zoom. Adam, first and foremost, how have you been keeping?
Very well, Andy. Miss you in the bubble. It's not the same without you. It's been an interesting week, as they all are under these circumstances, and I've really enjoyed being around the ladies, the Lady Warriors, who appear on Saturday night at Wembley, or 4 years on from Katie Taylor's professional debut in the same venue, and it's amazing how much women's boxing, women's sports, just it's boom time, isn't it? And it's fantastic that they've got the platform, not just on the linear channels on Sky Main Event and Sky Arena and Mix, but also on Facebook and on YouTube. And we're really trying to sort of broaden this out so everybody can watch this show on Saturday night. Like I really cannot wait. I'm very fond of them all. I think, obviously Katie Taylor is an incredible story, an absolute icon, a trailblazer, and she's done so much for the sport, or for sport in general, and for boxing. I'm not talking about just men's and women's. I'm talking about boxing. You hear Anthony Joshua talking about her. Everyone sort of loves Katie Taylor and respects her, and she's as ferocious in the ring as she is gentle outside it. And we've got a great story with Rachel Ball, who's a wonderful sort of social worker, does so much good, and she suddenly finds herself in this golden opportunity on a huge stage. And Terry Harper, who idolizes Katie and sort of takes pictures of her everywhere she goes around the bubble. I mean, it's really cute. It's a real sweet sort of story, and to sort of follow your hero into the ring, which will be the chief support. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's just a real feel-good fight week, and the bubble's a bit different. Different characters, and we've got some the visitors from Spain are fantastic, and Caterina Fandez is a very intelligent and easygoing lady, and she's so up for her chance of a world title win over Terry Harper. And Miriam Gutierrez seems very, very focused. She's been quite bullish this week, and she's been waiting for this patiently. Everyone wants a crack at Katie, don't they? So it's brilliant. It's been a good week, and we're really excited about fight night.
I spoke to Matt Macklin probably just over an hour ago, and he raised the point that he knows that Katie started to have maybe the odd few extra rest days now, just kind of not balancing her workload a bit better. That made me raise the question: is this kind of a sign that Katie's gradually coming towards the end of her career because she needs that bit more time to rest? Is that kind of me just looking into things too much, Adam, or do you think it is kind of gradually reaching that stage where Katie's moving on to other things away from boxing?
Matt and I talk a lot, as you know, not just obviously in the commentary booth, but we talk a great deal about Katie Taylor, and about we both know obviously Brian Peters very well, and especially Matt and the whole sort of team. And we've obviously followed Katie through the amateurs and a long time, and she's been fighting at elite level for many years. Let's not forget, she won 5 world championships, 6 Europeans, obviously the Olympics, I think 6 EU titles. I mean, you can't count the amount of medals she won as an amateur. I think she was unbeaten for 5 years. It's just phenomenal what she did then. And then ever since, 4 years as a pro, she's been undefeated. She's taken every challenge on. She's unified a division, which, Fury and Joshua are still trying to do in the heavyweights, and she's managed to do that, tick them off. And almost every fight was a thriller, with Rose Valente in Boston, and they were just great fights, great nights. And she's beaten Jessica McCaskill even way before McCaskill's victory over Brackus, Anais Sanchez when she won her first world title, and then of course 20 rounds she shared with Delphine Persoon, and also the move up to fight Lila Datu. So she's really packed it in 4 pro years. And she remains unbeaten in 16, and she's got huge ambition still. She loves to fight. She wants to fight. Hopefully, 3 times a year if she can. And I don't see there's much that's going to stop her going on and on as long as she can. Don't know. There's people that say, should she get to 20 and call it a day, or 22, 23? I don't know with Katie. I think she just loves the challenge, and she's been competitive since she was a kid, you know, and that's not just in boxing, in football as well, in anything. She's a winner, and she works extraordinarily hard and is just so focused. And a lot of people have asked her, Andy, this week, if she, you know, she wants just to sort of, you know, build up the next generation. And obviously what she's done for women's boxing is, you know, unbelievable. And you can see the sort of everyone following in her. Not just Terry Harper looks up to her, but you see Chantel Cameron winning a world title recently, Savannah Marshall. There's so many, you know, Rachel, obviously, you know, everybody looks up to Katie. And I think really her legacy is that she wants to be known as the best, certainly the best female fighter that ever lived, and one of the best fighters. And I think that you've got to say already that she is. So yeah, what is going to keep her motivated? I think the challenges, and I think there's a lot of fights out there. She still wants to fight Amanda Serrano. There's the cross fight with Cyborg. There's Cecilia Brækhus, maybe. I think she wanted to maybe try and become the person to beat Brækhus, but you know, that the winner of Brækhus McCaskill. There's Tasha Jonas, of course, you know, which is a really interesting fight now. So there's so much more out there for her. But there's probably one or two people that will think, don't go on too long. You know, she had a bad sort of rough patch in the amateurs at the end eventually. Is that because she stayed amateur too long, or was there personal things with that? Was there just a change of situations? And don't know. You know, I just think she'll carry on as long as she can. You know, will other fighters think, oh, there's some weaknesses? You know, Bassoon had some gave her some trouble. You know, Linda Dartu was tough and strong, and I think that, you know, she's a lightweight and she's a natural lightweight, and you know that, for example, the Brækhus fight can't happen anywhere near 147. That would have to be, you know, more down at the sort of 141, 142 level, you'd have thought. So it's difficult. You don't want to sort of go. You saw what happened with Lomachenko, you know, up against Lopez, and maybe he was affected a little bit about the strength and power of Lopez, and you just think, maybe come back down, and you don't want to go too far up. So I think that may be the thing to keep an eye on with Katie Taylor. But you know, she looks at Miriam Gutierrez, and although she's a big favourite to win this tomorrow night, she looks at her as a formidable, dangerous opponent. She's unbeaten. You know, she's a former European champion. She's ranked extraordinarily highly. You know, she's massively confident. You know, she thinks she's going to be too big and strong for Katie, and maybe she's seen things that, you know, that has given her, you know, certainly more self-belief in the last year or two. So we don't know where Katie is, whether she's at her peak, whether she's, you know, I mean, when was her peak? Was her peak when she was, you know, 13, 14, 15? Was her peak when she was in her 20s? Was she peaked in her... She's been so good for so long, Andy, that it's just been a sustained, you know, brilliant career, amateur and pro. And it's, you know, she's the unified lightweight champion, and she's unbeaten. And, you know, let's just enjoy every fight we get with her. Plus, the other thing is, not only does she take the big fights, but it's always exciting. You know, when do you remember a dull Katie Taylor fight? It just doesn't happen. And I think if you talk to, you know, Tony Bellew, to Anthony Joshua, to Tyson Fury, to all the sort of big names in British male boxing, you know, I think that they all so admire her and so respect her. And you go to America and they all absolutely adore her here. I think she's probably the most liked fighter I remember. I mean, Ricky Hatton was enormously popular. And, you know, there was 40,000 that came over to Vegas and all the rest of it. But there were still some people that you know, that didn't like his fighting style or thought Mayweather would beat him or whatever. Like with Katie, it's hard to come across anyone that doesn't think she's incredible, really. And it's not just sort of Eddie Hearn or me or whatever pushing. It's you just talk to people and they are just so inspired by her because of what she's done for sport. You know, everybody in Ireland, she's like, they feel part of her, and they've got, you know, not just a sort of, you know, not just Bray or Dublin, but the entire nation backs her. You know, her carrying the flag at the Olympics. And it's not just that. I think it's global now. I think it'd be very hard pushed to find anybody that doesn't think she is incredible. But how long can she last at the top? You know, that's the big question. Can, you know, Gutierrez ask more questions? Could she cause a big upset? You know, what's she going to be like against the Amanda Serranos? You know, she will get older, Katie, obviously, as she is. And, you know, how long can she go on for? So it's an interesting question. And I think we only will see that performance by performance. But let's just enjoy her while she's here, because she's a one-off.
Moving on to the rest of the card, Adam. Obviously, Terry Harper, somebody you mentioned earlier on. defending the title against her own mandatory challenger in Katarina Fanders. What are you expecting in that one, Adam? I've spoken to Katarina a few times over the past few months, and she's always come across as extremely confident heading into this fight.
She's nice, isn't she? And she's confident, and she's multilingual. She's, you know, obviously she's got the Norwegian and the Spanish roots, and she sort of, you know, trains in Spain, but Scandinavia is her love. And yeah, she's a really fascinating character, and she really, really fancies the chances. I think this could be fight of the night. I really do. I think, you know, Terry Harper was a little bit stung by the criticism after the Natasha Jonas fight. And I've been speaking to her this week. I mean, for me, I thought Tasha deserved the win, but it was close. And, you know, she got the draw, she kept her title, and it was a terrific fight. And it wasn't that she was bad in the fight. It's just that Tasha was terrific, you know, and absolutely had to be. I think it was a sort of must, not necessarily a must-win fight, but it was a must-perform fight for Natasha Jonas, and she really did. And she's obviously, you know, that's a great rematch down the line. So is possibly her and Katie, you know, after their fight in the Olympics, which was such a great event in London 2012. So, you know, that there's still fights to be made out there. But I think Terry was hard on herself afterwards, and I think she was upset, and I think she really wants to make a statement and sort of suggest that, look, you know, I can be better than that. And maybe she'll, you know, keep it long range, and maybe Fanders will allow her to do that, because she'll be right in her face, I think, and I think she'll make it a really hot, action-packed fight. But I think, yeah, I think, you know, it's a little bit of belief with Terry Harper. I think, you know, Eddie took her to one side this week and said, look, Terry, you know, you're pound for pound one of the great, you know, female fighters. You're a world champion. You can go and unify the division. You're young, you know, come on, you know, trying to sort of, you know, give her a lift. And I think Steffi's noticed that as well. I think they're much happier with the preparation this time. I think they've had a bubble before, so they're more used to it. I think that, you know, they feel more confident going into this, that they'll bring the best out of Terry Harper. But I think it's a tough fight. You know, Fanders is unbeaten. She's waited patiently for her chance. You know, she's with the Sauerlands. You know, there's a strong outfit behind her, and you know, I think Terry might, you know, might get the win here, and, you know, maybe she's a bit quicker and fresher than Fanders, and I think if she uses a long range boxing, I think she can come through this. But I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it's a tough fight, and I think the styles will gel really well. Actually, looking at them sort of at the press conference at the weigh-in, they're almost a sort of mirror image of each other. They look very similar, and they're both sort of, you know, extremely, you know, fit, well-conditioned athletes, and they train so hard. So I'm really looking forward to that fight. And Chief support, yeah, but as I said, it could be fight of the night.
Adam, we've seen Michaela Meyer calling Terry Harper out immediately after she picked up her own version of a world title a couple of weeks back. Is that a fight which you would imagine, if Terry was successful against Katarina, would be made next, or do you think we would see the Tasha Jonas rematch?
There's so much out there, isn't there? That's the great thing about the women's boxing scene at the moment, is that all these fantastic matches, you know, they've probably been the best since lockdown. We've had, you know, Harper Jonas, we've had, you know, obviously Katie and Delphine, we've had Rachel Ball and Shannon Courtney. You know, we've had some fantastic fights and wonderful performances like Chantel Cameron's and Savannah Marshall's. So I think the excitement of this is that we want to see these fights. You know, we're talking about these matches, you know, as much, if not more, than the men's. You know, obviously people are talking about Fury Joshua and Boazzi against Callum Johnson, all these fights you sort of want to see. But we're also talking about what we want to see the women do. And there's so much potential there. You know, if you look, we'll talk about Rachel Ball in a minute, but sort of down at those weights, you know, look at Ellie Scottney, you know, you're looking obviously at Shannon rematch. There's so much out there. Amy Timlin, so much happening. You know, that was a great fight, wasn't it, the other night with Skelly? That was a terrific fight. And, you know, there's so much happening in that sort of area. Then you look up a bit and you've got Chantel Cameron, Natasha Jonas, Terry Harper, Katie, obviously, sort of in a world of her own a little bit at the moment. But they're hot on their heels. And then you've got Savannah Marshall, obviously, gunning for Clarissa Shields. So there's so much out there. And I think, you know, maybe Katie will want to fight Tasha Jonas first before Terry Harper. I think Harper might go around and try, and if she gets through against Fanders, maybe some unifications coming. Michaela Meyer seems a big fight to me, so that I think we can build that. We can cook that in the pod a bit longer, because, you know, she's very outspoken. She's the big hope from over the other side of the pond, and obviously, you know, she's been calling Terry out, and it's not really in Terry's nature. She's maybe she'll start to take the bait a bit. But I think Terry will just concentrate on the job in hand. I think for her, it's important to remind people, what she's all about. And I think she didn't feel she did that against Natasha Jonas. I sort of slightly disagree, because although I think it was more a great performance from Jonas, who sort of took the fight and just unsettled Harper, and I thought that was really good of Jonas. And I think she's really shown what she can still offer. And she's going to be ringside with us tomorrow, which is fantastic. She's working with us, and I wanted her fighting, as you well know. I wanted her fighting on this bill, but that didn't happen. So as soon as Tasha's back, I'd love to see her in with either Katie or Terry Harper. But let's get tomorrow out the way first, because that's a hard fight for Terry Harper. It's a battle of the unbeatens, just like the main event is.
Moving forwards onto the final world title fight on tomorrow night's card, Rachel Ball versus Guanini. Again, Rachel obviously having to change. Well, she had to change of opponents. Originally, it was going to be Ebony Bridges. What should we expect in that fight, though? And because of Rachel's stature in her weight class, how much of an advantage do you think she holds over the majority of probably the division?
Well, she's so tall, isn't she? And she's got those long levers, and she's probably used to having to punch down. So that's not always easy. But obviously, for the others, and Shannon Courtney's size, and Gradini's about, I think, 5'2", so Rachel's like 5'9". So that's going to be tough for them, isn't it? Trying to get to Rachel, and listen, I think it's a fantastic story, the Rachel Ball story. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Some people may not know it all yet, but it really is. Watching her, she got the win over Shannon Courtney. Some people thought Shannon won. It was a great fight, but watching the interview afterwards that Andi did with her was just, she burst into tears, and you can just see, she's been so competitive in all sorts of different things. World kickboxing champion, she runs marathons, and and she's just sort of, she's done it the hard way, really, and she's come up onto fight camp, and she's upset the Matchroom favorite, and she gets this opportunity now, and it's a massive one for her. This is life-changing, and she's been great to be around all week. She's just so pleased to be here. There's always a smile on her face. She's obviously extremely proud, a proud lady, and a very competitive and determined lady, and she's wanted the opportunities, and I think she's adamant that she's not going to let this slip. She's had the difficulty of her opponents, changing, as you said, and then the Argentinian that's come in. I mean, she's been in Spain, but there's been the weight making issues, and then it wasn't going to be a bantamweight, and now it's a super bantamweight, and it's difficult. And there's a WBC interim belt on the line, not a WBA. Everything changes in boxing, and the most important thing is, I think, for Rachel and for Jorgelina, who's had a hard week as well, and very difficult one. She came with, a long hair. She looked very different at the beginning of the week. She shaved it all off in anger at the fact that she couldn't quite make the weight. She was trying desperately. And, this is a proud woman as well. She's a world champion, and it's going to be a tough fight. And I'm just pleased that the fight's happening for both of them. I'm pleased that it was all settled, that the weight was fine, and that we have a third great fight on. So, may the best woman win. And I think that, it's going to be another fascinating sort of clash of styles, and on a great night. So yeah, can Rachel become another world champion for Britain on the back of Chantel and Savannah? Or, is she going to lose out on the more experienced? She's in her 13th fight now, Jorgelina, and she's obviously a world champion, and she's had more experience at the higher level and at the longer distance. So she's going to be tough, but she's had a wobbly week too. So it'll be mentally who can keep themselves together on fight night as much as the physical battle in that one, I think.
Final fight I just want to touch on for tomorrow night's card, Adam. It's a brilliant fight between John Doherty and Jack Cullen.
I love it. I love it. Katie was adamant when we took this idea to her of sort of having a great night for women's boxing. She was adamant she wanted the men on as well. That was really important to her. It's great seeing Kash Farouk finally getting his Matchroom debut, and we've got another great fight as well. Jermaine Springer trying to spring an upset on Thomas, who's under Tony Bellier's wing, who's saying he's the best light heavyweight in Britain or will be. Team GB, Thomas Whittaker Hart. That's a really good fight too. So I like that. I love to see Cash Farouk finally. We're all excited about seeing him make his matchroom debut. But this other fight, yeah, I think it could be. I said about the Terry Harper fight being fight of the night, but this one is, and don't blink with this, because Doherty is pretty adamant that he's going to take out Cullen and in style, and maybe even in the first round. So it's not time to sort of go off and make a phone call or something. Keep your eyes on this one. But Jack Cullen is a tough guy. He's all action. He's now at super middleweight, which is obviously he's not going to quite have the punch power at super middleweight, but he's more natural because he doesn't have to grind himself, boil himself down to 11-6 anymore. So I really like it. And I mean, Doherty's just been, really turning up the heat in the build-up. And Jack Cullen's just, he's taking it all, and he's like, right, okay, come on then, let's have it. He's quite a mild-mannered guy, actually. He's very sort of, and this week he started swearing a bit. He started to, I think whether, Doherty's just trying to ruffle him, or that is just how, the Scottish super middleweight's all about. I like the look of Doherty. I like him. He's excited me since he's turned pro, since he's been on the circuit. But this is a big test for him, Cullen's much more experienced, but I think this could be another one, like the Harper Fanders fight, where styles could just blend beautifully. And if there's not an early bit of drama, I think that could be a really hard, exciting fight. So yeah, it's a great night, isn't it? And really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to seeing the BT night as well, where they're going to put on the big screen downstairs in a little bit. So we've got that tonight. We've got them tomorrow, and then so much coming up, haven't we? Conor Benn next week, and then we've got the Joe Joyce Dubois fight to look forward to. Mike Tyson and Roy Jones. Whatever you think of it, you might be watching it like that, but you're going to probably be tuning in. Then Tyson Fury. Have we announced a fight yet? Maybe you know more than I do, Andy, but I'm still waiting on whether it's going to be Caballero December the 5th, or are there problems with the Wilder situation? And then, it's AJ and Pulev on December the 12th. It's fantastic. And then, who knows, will Callum-Smith land that Canelo fight? I really hope he does. He deserves it. It'll be fantastic to see. Billy Joe's obviously got a big fight against Martin Murray. That's coming up in a few weeks. There's just so much going on, and it's really good that we're having a great end to what's been a traumatic year, and it's a chance for everybody to see as much boxing as possible. But tomorrow, I implore people to get on the Facebook, get on the YouTube. If you haven't got Sky Sports, if you haven't got that, that package, get on the other the streams. Watch it, because this is a real opportunity. If you haven't seen the likes of Terry Harper, Rachel Ball, and obviously Katie, fight, this is a real chance for them. They're all in good fights, all in good matches. Could have an upset or two on the cards. It's one that's a real showcase, I think, and I'm hoping that it will really attract a wide audience, obviously, especially in Ireland.
Adam, just moving away from the card over here in the UK, just get your thoughts on a few other things, and starting off with a show taking place in America. Obviously, we see Crawford-Brook take on Terence Crawford on Saturday night. Is this kind of just too late in Cal's career, or do you feel like he could still pull off what would be a huge upset?
Yeah, I gave him a call, Kel, the other day to wish him well. We've known him a long time. I remember when he was on his hands at the age of 10, the acrobatic stuff they learnt in there. Naz was flying, and Johnny Nelson and all that. And I remember thinking this is the next one on the conveyor belt. And what a journey it's been with Kel. I sometimes look at him and think he's a bit of an underachiever, because I thought he was that good as a junior fighter and an ABA fighter. And I thought he was going to, maybe become a sort of multi-weight champion at one point. And look, he was a fantastic world welterweight champion. He went and did a great job out there against Sean Porter. He's thrilled us over the years. He's really excited us, but he's had his ups and downs. He's had his difficulties outside of the ring, and also, of course, he took the risk of going in with Golovkin, and then had to boil himself down again to welterweight for Spence. And he's had a troubled couple of years of his career, but in terms of quality, ability, and what Kel has always had, it's been phenomenal. And I think we'll look back at his career when it's all said and done. If he doesn't win on Saturday, and we don't get that fight with Amir Khan, we'll look back and think he was a really good fighter for Britain. I just wonder if we should be looking back and think he was one of the great fighters for Britain, because I think he's had that potential. Is it too late? Good question. It could be, and it's back down at welterweight, which is a slight concern because of the difficulties he had. I like the fact that he doesn't have the IBF ruling on the Saturday morning to worry about, so he can come in big and strong. But is big and strong going to be enough for Terence Crawford, who is I remember when we saw him against Ricky Burns and we thought, oh, he's a good fighter, but now he's become an absolute great fighter. He's a fantastic finisher. That's what he's added to his arsenal. He's got wonderful momentum. He's a difficult man to fight. So listen, I wish Kell all the best. It will be a massive, massive achievement if he can pull it off. One of the big upsets, I think. So I think it's a really hard ask, but we'll all be staying up and wishing him well. But we also love Terence Crawford and what he's brought to the sport. I think he's a quality operator. I really enjoy watching him, and Amir Khan found it very, very tough, didn't he, against Crawford? And I think Kell might as well. But you never know with Kell. He's got that ability, maybe sometimes to turn something around, a little bit of magic. But you're right, it is late on in his career. It is at welterweight. It is away from home. There's no big Sheffield crowd behind him. I expect he'll go in and give it absolutely everything. And who knows? Never say never in boxing. Not many people thought Lopez would upset Lomachenko. So things can happen. It wouldn't be, the biggest shock ever, but it would be a big upset if he can bring that welterweight title back to Britain. But we wish him well. We wish Kell well. Really hope he performs fantastically and that his friends and family are proud of him. But Terence Crawford's, he looks pretty special, doesn't he? One of the pound for pound best.
This week, Adam, we've had the introduction of a new weight category via the WBC, Bridgerweight. Your thoughts on it, Adam?
I get the sort of small heavyweights, the big cruiserweights. Johnny fought at 13.8 and they moved it to 14.4. I understand that. The questions of Alexander Usyk. Will he beat the likes of the Ruiz, Parkers, the smaller heavyweights? And you put him in with AJ and Fury. Is that a mountain too high? But I look back at Evander Holyfield. I think he was 14-12 when he fought Riddick Bowe the first time, and he was never much over 15 something. And Mike Tyson, was 15.5 stone. They were sort of small heavyweights, but they did okay, didn't they, against the big guys? And that was part of the fascination. Could David and Goliath? David Haye going in with the big man mountain Nikolai Valoev, and he had to avoid one or two big bombs, but he managed to box his way home to an amazing win. Over in Germany. So I don't know. I quite like the sort of small heavyweights going with the big heavyweights because that's sort of the thing to prove, really. The cruiserweights coming up, and so I'm not sure. I mean, it's for me, it complicates boxing even more. It's like, what is this next division? There used to be 8 divisions, then it became I don't know how many now. It's and we work in the sport. It's another division. It's another. You've got I don't know these franchise belts, these diamond belts, these interims, these this, that. It's so complex, isn't it? When you unify a division, it's sort of clean for a few minutes, and then the mandatories come in. It's hard. It's hard enough in the trade to keep up, but for the casual fans, they just want to see the best fights, don't they? I don't know. It's WBC always try and do things differently, and I think a lot of things they do are right. But Eddie said this week when he was asked about it that he would rather see something between light heavy and cruiserweight. But again, it just adds another division, doesn't it? And it muddies the waters a bit. But again, I can see why you would want the sort of cruiserweights and smaller heavyweights to sort of have a fair vantage point. And if look, Maurizio is very good. He always comes out with sensible things, like it's for the safety of the fighters, and if the fans want it, and there's always good answers coming from Maurizio. But I don't know. I'm not sold on it.
Moving away from Bridgerweight, Adam, just a couple other things. Just want to quickly get your thoughts on. Little Babic was announced earlier on. I believe it was today, or it was either today or yesterday. Everything just coming together in my head, but. What are your thoughts on that one? Obviously, a fight that has been spoken about for a while now.
I love it. Alan Babic is fantastic. I mean, he was great fun in the bubble, wasn't he? I think, were you there that week? He was absolutely brilliant. I mean, he's just the alter ego and all that. It's great, when you get these characters, and who knows how far he can go and what the road ahead has. But again, let's enjoy him while we've got him. He's fantastic. Little's going to throw everything at him. I think he'll fancy his chances. I don't think he rates Babic too highly. And look, I love that fight. And you're going to have Fabio Wardley on as well. You've got Conor Benn in a terrific fight. So look, I'm looking forward to it. Chuck Dave Allen in the mix as well. I mean, we shared a few bubbles with him, haven't we, with Dave? And it's just entertaining having him around, let alone getting in the ring, but he needs to fight as well. So yeah, looking forward to it. It's another great week, isn't it? As I said, there's so many fantastic fights coming up before Christmas, so many great bills, and it's just trying to keep up with everything. As you said, you can't remember when that was announced, and you've got the Callum-Smith thing flying around and all sorts, and trying to keep up with it. We've got a show starting, momentarily, haven't we, on BT? So we want to watch that. So it's trying to keep up with everything. It's great. It's great. I think the promoters, the broadcasters on both sides of the Atlantic have been fantastic through this. They put some really, really good fights on, and they're still coming. Yes, COVID has come and it's delayed the Povetkin White fight. It's delayed Garcia and Campbell, but these fights will happen, and they've been made. So we're going to get them, and then we might get Canelo and Callum-Smith to finish the year. I mean, happy days, surely. I mean, disappointing days. There's no crowds, obviously, and I'm going to keep saying that it's not the same, and it won't be the same until crowds are back. But we're going to be waiting on that. So while we're waiting, let's just try and give as many entertaining matches as we can. And going back to your question about Babic and Little, that's just another one. I look at fights at the levels. I don't say that's a world title fight or even a British level fight or whatever level. It's just a good match, isn't it? That's what Fight Camp was all about. That's what it told us. No easy fights. Let's see more of those at whatever levels. That's what we want to see.
Just a final couple of more quick ones. Adam, you mentioned Canelo and Callum-Smith. A lot of rumours flying about that fight. Do you believe we could see, and if so, how do you kind of rate Callum-Smith's chances against somebody again who's considered by many to be a pound-for-pound contender?
Well, Canelo's become the boss, hasn't he? The free agent. He's sort of won that in a way, but he might end up back on his own. So listen, you can work with anybody, but maybe he's thought, now I can get this Callum-Smith fight done with Eddie Hearn, and we can make this happen. I mean, I think Callum deserves it. Billy Joe was so close to it, but I think if anyone does as well, Callum does. And I think it's a fantastic fight. I was talking to Tony Bellew about it earlier today, and he says, look, Callum will be a big underdog, of course, with Canelo. Everybody is, but he just thinks he's got the weapons to really trouble him, and the size and the inside fighting as well. He thinks he's a very underrated inside fighter. And look, he fought Liam Smith and he got the win there. I don't think it's a guarantee that he's going to beat Callum-Smith, because Callum is a very, very good fighter, one of our best, and I think he's got every chance of giving it an absolutely huge go. And I think he could cause the upset. I think you've got to favour Canelo as the favourite, and he is a brilliant fighter. But it wouldn't surprise me if Canelo has had a sort of strange sort of up and down year, hasn't he, with everything that's gone on. And if he's not, it will be on us pretty quickly. It's not far away. And if Callum's been training hard in the background, which I believe he has been, then you just never know. And I think it's a really good fight. I think it's the best fight that for us as British fight fans as well, that we can see at the moment. Billy Joe's obviously got Martin Murray, and then could you imagine if Callum does upset him, and you could do Callum against Billy Joe at Anfield, and all my dreams would come true then, Andy. I'd finally get that fight at Anfield that I've always wanted. But yeah, if Callum pulls off that big win, we could have him at, wouldn't it be brilliant after the season finishes at Anfield and Liverpool are crowned champions again, even with half a squad, with everybody out at the moment. We find a way to win the title, and boom, we get Callum fighting, and Billy Hogan we've spoken to before. He's now the main man at Anfield, and I know he wants to bring boxing there. So listen, I've not forgotten that dream. I'd love to see it. I know Callum would love it. So let's see. It's a long way off. There's other fights. There's Billy Joe. There's Golovkin. There's Chris Eubank Jr. Where's he at the moment? There's so many out there. But I would love Callum to get the shot at Canelo. And wouldn't it be a perfect end to an imperfect year? And it would, after all the waiting around and the difficulties of not knowing when he's fighting next, be great to see Callum-Smith get that opportunity. And will he win? I don't know. Can he win? Yeah, of course he can win. He can, if he believes in himself. He's unbeaten. He's a World Super Series champion, and Canelo. There are ways, and could he pull it off? Possibly, but it's a hard ask again. Is it as hard as Brook and Crawford? No, but it's hard.
My final question, Adam. We've seen Eddie come out and saying that he'd like to make a bout between Filip Hrgović and Michael Hunter. Your thoughts again if we was to see that one go ahead?
Love it. Like Michael Hunter a lot. Again, here's a little guy who's coming up and fighting the big heavyweights. So don't think he needs the new division, does he? He wants to go straight in. He doesn't care who he fights. but he was unlucky in Saudi not to get the decision against Alexander Povetkin. Like that fight with Hrgovic. There's some really good matches to be made, aren't there, in the heavyweight division? We know we've got White Povetkin's rematch. We've got Joyce and Dubois coming up. We've got so much. It's fantastic, and I don't know. It's wonderful times for the heavyweights, and long may it continue. But Hrgovic, definitely. Hrgovic and Hunter, bring it on.
Adam, we'll leave that there then, and I will leave you to enjoy the rest of your evening, and of course enjoy the show tomorrow night. I appreciate your time as always, and I'll catch up with you probably at some point next week to reflect on this card, and obviously look forward to the Ben Formella card. Thank you for speaking to Boxing Social.
We've had Boxing Tuesday, Wednesday, tonight. Can't wait for this show on BT, and then tomorrow night it's our show. I mean, this is what we're in it for, isn't it? It's happy days.
100% is, Adam. Thank you.
Cheers, Andy.